what's up, Mob Crew? Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I am Chris with Monsters Under Our Bed. We cover homicide, mystery to the missing, and today we got a great show for you. We also have our co-host Steve from True Crime Web, who I'll introduce here in just a bit. But today we're going to be covering the latest from Rex Heuermann, and it came across some phone calls and some old footage from a show that covered this case, and they got a strange phone call, and they thought it could be Rex. And anyway, so I pulled that phone call and the guy that's talking, and there's a couple of very interesting things. Not only how the voice is very similar, but what he's actually saying in the actual call, and then what's versus what Nikki Brass, one of the, you could say, potential victims that had a date with Rex, and what they talked about, and it actually kind of matches up. So it's quite wild. Very excited to show this, but we'll go through everything, kind of just a basic timeline for those that may be kind of newer to this case. But before we get started, we always like to give back by featuring the missing. So let me get set up here. Okay, wait a minute. Oh, okay, that scared me. Like last week we had problems. YouTube had an issue where we couldn't see our chat, and that was such a bummer. So anyway, we've got today's missing. We've got Aaron Davidson. He was last seen last month, this month. I guess today's the last of the month. July 6th, at a residence 200 block South Grand Avenue in downtown Los Angeles. Of course, his family is concerned for his safety, or that he may be hospitalized and unidentified. So missing out of Los Angeles, California, 33 years old, 5'11", 170 pounds, brown hair, brown eyes, great looking guy. Just went missing 3 weeks ago. Aaron Davidson. If you have any information, let's see if I can get the number here. There it is. 213-996-1800. All right. And one more. We've got Arya Daffrin, just 12 years old, 5 foot, 95 pounds, brown hair, green eyes. She was last seen this month as well, July 14th. She may be in the company of an adult female who may have traveled out of state. They may be traveling in a 2004 Volvo station wagon with Nevada license plate number 904B70. And let's see what we got here. Photo of Angeli Marie Sloan. Okay, so I guess this person on the left is who she's suspected to be with here. Zoom in a little bit here. So not sure how that's related, because that's a Sloan, but that's the car there, or what it looks like. So that is out of Sparks, Nevada, but could be in Missouri or the Appalachians is how I grew up learning to say it, but Appalachian. And the phone number to call is 775-785-9276. All right. So, and then just one more time, I just want to show that I showed this on Saturday. I think this is so awesome. I think this should give, a lot of families hope who have missing people, missing family members that are still missing out there. And this is Alicia Navarro, who was found safe earlier this month, or earlier this, today's Monday, last week, which is so amazing because she was missing for almost 4 years. She does have some autism, and they believe that she was possibly lured by a predator at the age of 14. But good news, she's in great health. She was walked into a police station in Montana, and I think that's just so amazing. And it's just so awesome because we featured her multiple times, and she's actually one of the first, when I first started featuring missing people, I think she was like one of the top 15 first people I've featured on this channel. So, and I featured her a couple of times throughout the years. So it's really awesome to see that, there's always a silver lining, and there's good news. So anyway, go ahead and introduce my co-host for today, Steve from True Crime Web. Hey, Steve, how you doing, buddy?
I am doing great. Thank you for having me today, sir.
Always an honor to have you on, my friend. For those that might be new to my channel or yours, you want to give just a quick background about yourself?
Sure. I'm retired law enforcement. Started way back before anyone even knew what CSI was. And during my career, I started off in the jail, worked road, went into investigations, um, got certified as a crime scene uh, investigator before CSI was cool. And I've handled all different types of investigations from thefts all the way up to homicides. And after I retired, I became into the and found the web sleuths and your channel, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Obviously, humbled and honored, my friend. And yeah, I just got to read this comment because it's like kind of one of those Bernstein type deals. But dang, so I've been pronouncing it wrong this whole time. So I grew up saying it Appalachians, but
I did too.
Right, and now it's Appalachian. Is it a West versus East Coast thing? And I just didn't know about it. And so, the East Coast says
the holler I'm from, that's the way we pronounce it. So I'm sure that each holler can pronounce it whatever way they want to.
Because, when I first started hearing the two different ways it was pronounced was actually when Guy Butito went missing, and I thought, Brian Laundrie could have went to the Appalachians or the Appalachians, how I was brought up to, and I was like, what's the Appalachians? Where's that?
Well, I'm no wordsmith, so I'll let them argue it out. And I'm from here, and I'm in the foothills of the Appalachians, so I'll just do it the way my family's been saying it for as long as I've been around. So
right.
If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But I live here, so
Yeah. So we're going to get started here. Thank you to all my wonderful mods, Molly, Karen, Copper Horse. I'm trying to go through them here. I know Jennifer usually kind of has her son today. Let me grab this real quick. Haley Shroop, sorry. Hello to my two favorite people. Me loves you guys. Chris, is your email fixed yet? Yes, I did get it fixed today, thanks to the help of somebody. And basically, long story short, I cannot use the Bing browser. For some reason, it messes it up. And so I had to literally reset my password and everything. So, and it's such a pain in the butt, but yeah. Good to see you, Cunningham. Of course, good to see Elizabeth. So many people in here. I wish I could shout everybody out. We'd be here all night. So I really appreciate everybody coming in. And for those that, like I said, new to Steve's channel and curious, please go subscribe to his channel. The link is pinned at the top in the comments there. And we'll get started here. We got so many questions I got for you, Steve. But first, we'll just kind of touch on the timeline just a little bit. So if you guys were here with me on Saturday, I kind of delved into Shannan Gilbert's case, focused on that on Saturday. So I'm going to start with her, but I'm just going to kind of fast forward. We're not going to, spend too much time on one thing, but, she's kind of the catalyst in some ways, even though she's not technically the first victim. She is kind of what led to, finding the bodies. So we'll start here. And then, like I said, I've got some wild stuff. So these phone calls I was telling Steve about, I really think it's Rex. And we'll get to that in about 30 minutes or so. So let's get started. So here is Shannan Gilbert on the left, 23 years old, went missing on May 10th. She was seeing a client in Oak Beach. Sadly, there was something, she didn't feel safe. She called 911. There's, of course, 911 calls out there. We listened to them on Saturday. It's kind of disturbing. There's about a 30-minute phone call, and There's a couple guys in the background. She was seeing a client, Joseph Brewer, and then she had her driver with her, Michael Pack, who supposedly have they both been cleared. But anyway, she did not feel safe. She ran out the neighborhood and kind of went to a couple of different houses, knocking on doors, and sadly, a few hours later, she ran off. Michael Pack said he tried to look for her and then left. And then when law enforcement finally showed up, they couldn't find her. And then sadly, they wouldn't find her until a year later in December 2011. And so when they found her remains, or actually, excuse me, when they were looking for her remains, they came across the Gilgo 4 in December of 2010. So I'm sorry. So while they were looking for her, later that year in December 2010, they found the first 4 bodies, 4 victims, and that's the Gilgo 4. And then they went out to look for her again, and that's when they found her along with 6 other bodies plus hers, so 7 bodies. Right, yeah, 10 plus hers, so yeah, 11 bodies. So just a little background on her or her story. So after that happened, the family got an attorney, or he helped represent, and this is John Ray. He's serving for Shannan Gilbert's family and as well as Jessica Taylor. Taylor is a 20-year-old who went missing on July 21st, 2003. So if these were all connected, she would be kind of more towards one of the first few victims, if they're all connected. They would find part of her remains later that same month in Manorville, but they wouldn't find the rest of her remains until they found the other remains on Gilgo Beach. So part of her remains were in Manorville, and the other parts were in Gilgo Beach. So moving on, so this was one of the problems, and this is where I wanted to get your opinion on, Steve, is so it says that, so John Ray, like I said, so he's representing the family. This is his words. So he says, I go to the autopsy meeting, and the autopsy meeting there are 2 medical examiners, and there are 3 homicide detectives sitting in a row with their arms folded, looming over the entire process. John Ray explains. He explains it's supposed to be a civil process for the family. And then he goes on to say, there's no scintilla of a reason for those cops to have been there, the lawyer added. Ray became frustrated at the hold the authorities seemed to have over the medical examiner. And he basically says, every time that I asked any kind of pungent question of the medical examiner, she would get out of her chair, and before answering, she would go over, whisper to the detectives, and then come back and answer my question. So obviously they had control on what these examiners were saying. So what is that common? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know exactly when this autopsy was going on and the examination was going on, but if it's during the process of the investigations and they have some type of criminal case open, of course, they'll want to release only certain details.
Okay, sure.
And
I mean, that makes sense. Sure.
But like I said, we just got a clip of what is this article from what you just said.
Sure.
But that's what, from what you just mentioned, that's where I would go with this right now. That they're just trying to keep things, whereas if it's open to the general population, there's certain information you may not, that the medical examiner may note and wants to see if that's something that the law enforcement wishes to have released.
Okay, so it's kind of trying to protect the investigation, although maybe John was feeling like that's not the case. They're being too secretive. And of course,
exactly.
And then of course, yes, this is during the time when you have that corrupt police chief, sadly. So maybe there could have been a little bit more going on. May never know about that, sadly.
Yeah. I know very little about this case at all.
Sure.
You're breaking news to me as we go.
Yeah, that's why I wanted
this.
Yeah, and I'm going to shock you a little bit more, and then I'm going to shock.
Good. I might be shocked.
All right, like I said, we got a great show for you guys. Really excited, and Bill, you're Yep. Little teaser here. Hey, Chris and Steve, have you watched The Killing Season? Yes, I have. Documentary on Lisk and the Gilgo Beach from a few years back. I believe it is. I believe it is on Annie. Yes, and I have got that clip. And the main highlight of today's show is going to be about that particular episode, if that's what you're kind of bringing up. And really excited to show what we uncovered here. So, all right, moving on. So when they found her, she was kind of found different from the other victims. She was found on the opposite side of the beach. All the victims were found on the north side of Ocean Parkway. She was actually found on the south side of the Ocean Parkway. Now she was found lying apparently face up in the marsh. Obviously, since they didn't find her for a year later, skeleton. But she did have her belongings close to her. And it was ruled at the time like an accident to unknown causes. But the family didn't feel right. They felt like this was some kind of foul play. And so Shannan's family wanted to get a second autopsy done. And so this is where they went and had a second autopsy. And so they said that she supposedly met a violent end, that she was strangled, according to the attorney Ray. Ray was there when the world-renowned medical examiner, Dr. Michael Baden, performed the second autopsy. It says, when we looked at the bones, we were able to discern that a very small, significant hyoid bone in the neck was cracked on one edge. It indicated that she did not die of natural causes, and it was consistent with homicide, which disputes the findings of the Suffolk County Police Department. And then they also said that they realized, let me stretch this out just a little bit. Ray also pointed out that there was a hole at the base of Shannan's. So not only is there a fracture, but there's a hole in this bone that was found in the second autopsy. They say, excuse me, it appears to be something that was either drilled or pushed through that bone. And we couldn't determine what it was, but it was highly unusual. So before I get your thoughts on this, Steve, let me just show, for those that may have missed Saturday's show. So here's your mandible. This is the hyoid bone. And when you look up strangulations, one of the common things that you may find, not all the time, but according to this thing here, is it says the hyoid bone is a U-shaped bone in the neck that is fractured in 1/3 of all homicides due to strangulation. But what's even more important is postmortem detection of a hyoid fracture is relevant to the diagnosis of strangulation, meaning if the hyoid bone is broken, that means it's a good possibility that it's strangulation. So thoughts on that?
I mean, that's something they look for, and I don't see how it was missed in the initial, because that would have been something they would absolutely check on, and what did they miss, and how would you miss that hole? And I don't know how big a hole they're talking about. Are they talking about something? And when you talk about using a drill, of course, it can be any size, but if you're talking about something small, such as like possible ice pick or something, that's a different instrument that individuals and certain types of offenders have used. And are there any pictures of any of that? Do we know?
I don't. I don't.
mean, I know law enforcement has them, and of course.
Yeah, I don't think they're out there. Although I don't think so. But
okay. Yeah, it is interesting, and like I said, I don't know how it was missed in the initial, because that's what the medical examiners, that would probably be one of the first things that you would check on a victim that's faced up, or that'd be one of the first things that I would request.
Oh, really? Oh, especially face up. Interesting.
Absolutely. Yes. It's one way of course, you can have drowning victims both ways, face up or face down, because even from a drowning victim can be a homicide if they're forced to be held by someone that's larger, and submerges their face or head underwater, and So there's a lot of different ways that you can drown. It's not always a natural or accidental death.
Sure.
You have where it is a homicide by drowning.
Interesting. Very interesting. Peyton Plays, hey Mom Crew, hey True Crime Web, thank you. And yes, I'm going to be, because I know you and a few others asked about the wish list, and I have that ready, and I'm going to probably do a community post maybe tomorrow, Wednesday, and I have that. But good to see you, Peyton. And Brenda, thank you so much for the $5 super sticker. You're so awesome. Of course, any donations are thank you, Steve. Really appreciate it. We are going to be, Steve just got back from a trip. I was supposed to be out there with him, but unfortunately he had some health issues. But we are talking about our next plans, which is going to be hopefully August. And we're going to be going out and working maybe 2 cases this time. Well, you worked 2 cases last time. Going to try to double dip. And so, yeah, all that goes to the cause of working cold cases. So we appreciate that. All right, let me finish this, and then we're going to start getting into, all this is interesting, but I can't wait to show you guys this new stuff it's not new, but just under a different light. So I'm just going to finish up. He says that according to the first autopsy, that apparently the medical examiners, she saw a photograph because it was, let's see, what does it say? Concluded that there was a dent. So I guess the first medical examiner concluded that there was a dent in the hyoid bone, which clearly meant to me that she didn't examine it at all. So I guess he saw a photo. There was a photo with the dent in it, which may be the hole or the fracture. I'm not sure. Oh no, the dent was a hole. It says, yeah, that's right. So yeah, he's kind of baffled why this examiner didn't.
Yeah, and we had to pull it out and look at it in some more light for the fact that how often do people drown natural deaths or drownings at the end of a 911 call? It just doesn't.
Right.
The odds of that someone is chasing you and you escape unscathed and then you die of a natural drowning, that just doesn't make sense. And I don't understand that at all.
Right. Okay. So moving on, and so we're gonna, like I said, because I'm not gonna try to repeat too much of what we did on Saturday's show, but I do want to start with Shannan because I know Steve's familiar with the case, but just like anybody, there's so many elements and layers to this case, so many layers, and so figure start kind of with a decent timeline here. We'll get some chats here in just a minute. I see them coming in. Thank you, guys. So he started representing them. He did actually start receiving some, I don't know if you call them taunting. Well, I guess they would say taunting phone calls, but they're very odd. But what's interesting is in these ones, there's actually a male and a female that could be heard. And he was taunting. These people would call John Ray and his family and would actually... they would have to had somebody nearby because they would say, "Oh, well, I just saw your daughter go out there with a blue tracksuit on." So he was getting some really scary phone calls, and I'm going to go play that part because we just got so much. But he did get some very strange calls, and then they stopped just before Rex was arrested. So kind of interesting. And the similarity to Rex is Rex did make taunting phone calls to at least one of the victims in their family, which is Melissa. And, he used her phone to call her family members and say what he did to her, which is just absolutely terrible. This guy clearly likes attention. And, yeah. So we went over that. And so I think... so we kind of went over these. I think we'll stop here and we'll get to the video and then we'll come back to the Gilgo floor because we did talk about how they found their bodies because of Shannan. And so we'll stop there and I'm going to get the video ready here. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Let me back that up. There we go. Okay, so let me get these super chats and then we'll get the video going here. super excited to show you guys this. So Brenda, thank you so much for the $5 super sticker. I think I just shouted that out. Mindy Harris, love you guys. You do a great job keeping us informed. Thank you for all you do. Thank you so much, Mindy. You are so awesome. Crime Geek, water does make bodies decomp faster. True. I think it does, especially if it's warmer, right? I think it depends on the water's temperature.
It does. It's just like everything, certain waters, and it also whatever the inhabitants of that water.
The marine life, or
yes, there's certain animals, and I don't know what the marshlands around the ocean there have, but it could have an impact on that. Absolutely.
Oh, this is a great comment. The hyoid bone is such a tiny bone. To drill a hole would be something only someone with the anatomical knowledge would be able to know. Yeah, I would think so.
If that was their intent, something that got in the way, or it's just by accident, I don't know, but yes, that is very strange.
Yeah, that's a great point.
It is.
Okay, I think we got caught up here, guys. Okay, good deal. So everybody's saying hi. Thank you guys so much. Doodle Mom, hello from Wisconsin. Chris Mopker, thank you, Doodle Mom. I love that name. All right, let's get going here. So I've got a bunch of collages and stuff, and then towards the end of this video, it's about 6 minutes. Towards the end is where what I talked about in the beginning, where there's this phone call that comes in to these creators of Killing Season. This guy that kind of sounds like Rex talks about a very interesting subject, and they always kind of thought it could be the offender. And then anyway, I'll just leave it at that.
Oops.
True crime fan who just knows information they've seen on.
Okay, so what we got in the beginning is just 2 short clips of highlights from Nikki Brass. She's one of the, I guess you could say, potential victims that have come forward. She's been kind of making the rounds. She's got some very interesting stories with her date that we're going to be talking about. She went on a date in 2015. I got to write that down.
TV or read. Mm-hmm. It seemed like somebody who was reliving it. One thing I remember specifically was he said to me, "How do you think they get rid of the bodies without going noticed?"
Then we started talking about serial killers,
And this is another, you could say, potential victim who also went on a date, and she had the same. So basically, with these two, the common thing is he shows up at this place, and they two, get to talking, and he brings up, "Do you like true crime?" And then they start talking about, true crime, and then it gets into Gilgo Beach. And she shares a similar story. So just a highlight from her.
I knew was going to happen. Like I said in the last video, I knew it was a common interest that we had. But when we started talking about serial killers, it felt like he was not so much interested in the criminal mind and the serial killers themselves, but more so into the murders. And one of the things that he said, he asked me, who's your favorite serial killer? And I can't remember what I said, but he followed up with telling me that his favorite serial killer was the duo, the Hillside Stranglers, and I think they were based out of LA. But he went on to say that the reason that the Hillside Stranglers were his favorite were because they tortured their victims before they...
So, yeah, I cut that off, but a little early. I wanted to play a little bit more. But, yeah, he likes it. Apparently, he was fascinated because he tortured them. And then, what's your thoughts on that? It's kind of creepy. I don't know if it's...
the implications of her stating that is going to, pique the interest of law enforcement for the fact that he's talking about not only a single offender, because Hillside Strangers was actually a 2-man crew, and they they use ruse such as law enforcement, that they were law enforcement officers during their abductions, and of course,
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
so is that something that he's playing up to? And of course, if this is a first date, that's an
Yeah.
interesting table talk.
Right. And then you know what he ends on with both dates, or close to the ends of the conversation. He says, "Oh, well, by the way, after talking about the Gilgo Beach victims and, the cases, he ends with, oh, by the way, I live by Gilgo Beach." And that's why both of these girls were like, no, I'm out, I'm out. So, yeah, some smart girls there. All right. I'll keep playing here. This is just a little, a clip of him leaving a voicemail to one of his coworkers or former coworkers. Now listen to the way he I'm not sure what the right word is, but he kind of accentuates some of his words. He kind of pauses with a word and when he talks. And we've got a bigger interview with him. We'll kind of examine that because we're going to be comparing his voice with the possible call that he called in back in, I think, like 2006. It takes a second to get going. No.
I heard you are no longer part of the group. I still wanted to talk to you. I had a question for you. I also wanted to touch base. So if you get an opportunity, you can always try me at the office. Hope you're doing good. Hope to talk to you soon.
Also, just
one thing that
It's like I couldn't tell you anything about it. I have no idea.
Okay, I really wanted to put that part towards the part that we're the main part of this thing here, but like I said, we're going to get to it. So now this is where she gets told basically how he believes, which I think to me is just admitting how he got the bodies there, kind of.
Yeah. And he said, what if they treaded through the marsh with the burlap sacks? You would never see them. He's like, it's a very dark and desolate area.
So I'm going to play this again.
And he said, what if they treaded through the marsh with the burlap sacks? You would never see them. He's like, it's a very dark and desolate area.
So I want to pause it right there. What do you think he means, what he meant by saying treading? Do you think he meant by just pulling over and he treaded through the marsh? Or did he pull up on a boat and tread?
Well, we're getting it from her perspective.
Right, sure.
But also, though, it does, if what she says is absolutely true, he is saying that he knows and he has been there and he's seen how desolate and he understands why that would be a dumping ground just from that. Because he's absolutely familiar with that area. Or that's what I take from that few words.
Okay, interesting. Let me know what you think in the chat, treading. But yeah, I've always kind of wondered.
But there wasn't much, because these girls were found within 10 to 15 yards from the side of the road.
Oh yeah, not far from the road at all. As a matter of fact, it'd take longer in some instances from the boat, but then of course you're less likely to be seen from the boat.
Yeah, but that, of course, law enforcement. I don't know how far into that law enforcement has looked into these marshes, and will they be other victims found in there? Because if he is talking about treading, and what was the final part was that they would be extremely hard to be found he may be talking about there's far more, or he was alluding to the fact that there's many more victims that are deeper off of the roadway than those that are close to the road.
Interesting.
Because, that's an odd sequence of words, and words typically mean something. And taking a victim 10 yards is not what you would call treading.
Right. That's why I thought that word, and, maybe she's changed it from what he said, but I kind of think it's more likely that she used the word he used, treading.
Yeah, almost like trekking on a trek, or, that he was had went further into those marshes. And I'd love to hear it, of course, in its first generation of from him.
Yeah, of course. Camilla Norris. Shannan had a driver that also was her bodyguard to keep her safe. Does anyone else find it odd that she was running from him also? Right. I know some people could say that, chalk that up to, maybe she was under the influence and was, paranoid, and maybe it was combination, but still, the way she was found and stuff still is odd. And the fact, she was running from these guys. It's clearly she didn't feel safe. Maybe she was told something and that we just didn't know before that 911 call. Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you, Camilla Norris, so much. So I'm going to keep playing this and we'll get some more. So this just kind of shows the back area of just kind of the view if you were coming from the boat here.
Side of that is the ocean. We're on what's called the bayside. This bayside seems to present a possible area of ingress for somebody who's looking to get to the areas where the bodies were found. If you look behind me, that copse of trees right there is approximately where the 4 bodies that are known as the Gilgo 4, the 4 that are currently in the case that's indicted, 3 of the bodies are indicted, the 4th one expect to be indicted soon.
Okay. So the question would be boat or by vehicle? And I would assume more likely by vehicle, by boat. But I do have a question.
For the ducks.
5 miles that way. Police say Heuermann was an avid duck hunter who knows these waters well. A duck hunter out on a small boat would attract very little attention, even late at night.
He's a duck hunter, which means that he had both potentially the boat that could get access to the shoreline, as well as some of the artifacts around the victim. Some of the forensics showed that they were wrapped in a camouflage burlap, which is indicative of somebody who...
So the only thing that, since his arrest, there's been no boat seized. There's been no talk about a boat at all. No friends coming forward saying, hey, yeah, I remember, we loaned, we shared this boat between these years. There's been no mention. Let me know in chat if you guys have seen anything, but I've looked, and there's just been, there's been talk that, he mentioned going out duck hunting and was, used a boat, but there's been no boat.
You're a boat. Why don't you just dump them into the water?
Yeah, well, and like I said, we'll save kind of this part for the end. I kind of clipped these together. But I've got some interesting questions as far as if you had a boat. Yeah, why not take them to some of these other islands that are most likely desolate?
Well, not only that, but then take them up next to the road where you might be spotted within 10 yards of. I mean,
right?
What sense does that make that wherever the boat ramp is, that you launch your boat there? You have a victim within that boat, and you travel to the location and dump the bodies there, and have to use all the strength to navigate the marsh. That just doesn't make sense to me at all. That he would have brought the victims in by boat.
Yeah,
that's
like
just my personal opinion.
Right, and we're going to touch that on the end as well here. So, but I totally agree. It's confusing. Doodle Mom, thank you so much for becoming a member and supporting this channel. You are so awesome. And we do usually at the beginning of the week, I put out my my members content for Patreons and the YouTube members usually today or tomorrow. So expect some new content for the members tonight or tomorrow. Okay, let's keep going here.
We met the victims while I was campaigning.
Sorry, that's a little loud. Turn that down just a little bit. I wanted to get your thoughts on what he means by this. So this is after they raided the house.
I told them that we were going to get point. I participated in the grand jury, and myself and a handful of
some evidence. But as far as what you've seen, what's come across your desk, what's the single biggest piece of evidence that you've come across?
I think it's a combination of a number of things. But the DNA evidence, I think, is very powerful.
So there was medical examiners that were seen on site. They were at the house for about a week. Obviously you've seen some clips. They were tearing up the house. Obviously, he was kind of a hoarder, so it probably took him more time than probably usual because they had just a lot of stuff to go through, and then of course they have this backyard that they had to completely tear up. But what is your thoughts on what do you think he means by DNA? Is this just getting his toothbrush DNA from him, or is this DNA from the victims?
Yeah, it was broken up, and I never did get it in full context. Other than that, the DNA is what is the focus of his conversation here. But I don't know from what. I didn't get.
Did it break up on the video?
Yeah, I didn't.
Let me play it back for you here, buddy.
And myself and a handful of
some evidence. But as far as what you've seen, what's come across your desk, what's the single biggest piece of evidence that you've come across?
I think it's a combination of a number of things, but the DNA evidence I think is very powerful.
Okay, and then we've been seeing the video, the photos.
So I know it's not a lot
the
of
DNA.
work.
I mean, it could be anything and everything. Just from that brief statement, of course, it is that whatever DNA they've gathered from the residences, or DNA from his residence, or from his vehicles, or from him, his hair, whatever, or from the victims, is the strongest piece that they have right now. So it could be from anything.
Okay, so it could be from him, or it could be possibly the victims.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, interesting.
Of investigators at the Heuermann home there on Long Island, the family home. You've been in the backyard, you've been inside the house. I wanted to see if you could share with us some of the stuff that has been located there, or anything that's helped in your investigation.
Well, Tom, we've executed a number of search warrants in the case, including at the residence, and we've gathered a lot of evidence. We're looking for everything from tangible items of evidence to blood, biologic evidence, DNA. So we really need to just, categorize that evidence and then forensically examine it, and it's going to take some time.
There's been a lot of reporting that the victims, unfortunately, in this case, after they were killed, they were dismembered and then put in those.
Okay, so this is a part where the way he says dismembered, not all the victims were dismembered, from what I understand. Especially part of the Gilgo 4, unless they just left it out of the probable cause. So I don't know if he's just talking about as in a whole there. Anyway, unless they've just kind of left some stuff out of the probable cause affidavit. But anyway, but
burlap sacks. Is it your belief that he did some of these crimes and the chopping up, if you will, of these bodies at his home?
Well, there's no evidence either way to point that the murders were actually committed either in the house or outside the house. I think with regard to the DNA evidence on two of the bodies, there have been hairs recovered that the DNA's profiles are consistent with both the defendant, and two hairs are consistent with his wife.
Does that lead you to believe something happened in the house?
Well, that could be the case, or there's something called transfer DNA, where if you just live with someone, their hair and your hair could get on your person, and then if you contact with a third person, both of those hairs could.
So, yeah, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, it could be both ways. They could have possibly been killed inside the home, but with finding, I think there's actually 3 victims. They've only been able to identify the hairs on 2. So you got the Gilgo 4, right? 3 out of the 4 had hair DNA, female hair DNA. 2 of them identified as his wife. The other one's kind of unsure, but they think it's, they can't exclude his wife, so it could be hers. So it's just probably the strand's just not as good. So let's just say 2, if not 3, these victims have that kind of hair on it. Do you think it's good? It's a possibility they could have been killed inside?
Well, in law enforcement, one of the big CSI principles is Lacard's exchange principle of that. Whatever your environment is, you'll bring that into a crime scene, or you'll have an exchange with the victim, and you'll take something from that crime scene back to your environment. It's sort of like what you'll look at and what they've been looking at with the Kohlberger case.
Sure.
of what the attorney said, that there's no evidence from the victims in the properties of Coburg. And it would be the same that they would look at it with Heuermann, and if that exchange principle is true. And it appears that we absolutely have Rex's home environment has been transferred to the victims. And it appears from the way that he phrased that, they have far more DNA than, because he put a number on the number of hairs from Rex's wife, that we have 2 hairs.
Yep.
And so there's probably going to be more DNA that will be identified as Rex's, or from the lab work as we progress from the CSI side of it.
Interesting. Hey, Joe, thank you so much for becoming a member. You are so awesome. Yeah, I'm getting to them little by little. You go down here and check the chat. We're getting to the phone calls. It's coming up here about just a couple minutes. I think we've got this video to play, and then the phone calls, the big thing that I wanted to show today, is coming up next. So let me just get caught up in chat here. Oh, that's right. I can't see gifted memberships. I'm sorry. That's the one thing I can't see when I'm in StreamYard. So let me jump over here so I can see. Cynthia, I'm sorry, I can't when I'm in this one. Yeah, I did get Mindy's. Yeah, Cynthia gifted 5 Mob Crew memberships. Thank you so much, Cynthia. Please show Cynthia some love in the chat. That is so awesome. Thank you. Good to see you, KCN. All right, get caught up here. All right, go ahead and play this. So this is what they found in the backyard. Now, first, I thought this was soil at first, because, when we went did the Amber Crumb case, we did kind of the same thing. We dug holes and we took soil samples. So when I first saw this, I'm like, oh, this is soil. But then I started seeing people actually blow it up. And sadly, I did a video and I look like kind of an idiot, but, I'm human. I don't think this is soil. This has got to be some kind of fabric, because I'll slow motion it as well. So we'll see a regular version of it, and then I'm going to zoom everything up and slow it down. And you can tell the way it falls in. This is clearly something that's light.
It's going to be huge if it's the camouflage burlap.
Yep. So I'm going to play it, and I'm going to let you see what you see, buddy. That's just me kind of pointing out the items there. So I thought, like I said, I originally thought they were soil samples.
Well, they would be heavily stained from the soil, so you'll have that. And they would still be able to do certain things, because there's certain chemicals within the body that, as they decompose, and there's certain bugs and things that interact with the body fluids, that they'll be able to tell a lot from that soil.
Okay, so watch what they do with the bag. All right. Oh, let's see. So I was showing what an animal bone. Some people are thinking maybe bones, but I'm like, no, it can't be bones. It's not. Burnt cell phone. Yeah, no, there's too many pieces. Now this is what they do with the bags, and then we're gonna watch a zoom in. And then, but here's what they do with the bag. I don't know if this will give you an idea of what you think it'd be. I think the consensus is it's some kind of fabric, from a lot of people that have zoomed in and looked at it from different angles. But this process looks familiar, because this is what we did when we did Amber Crumb. Put its stuff in paper bags, signed it. Basically, it's a log of keeping track of where it went into, who's handled it. Now we're going to look at a close-up. Now watch the way it falls into the bag. I think this gives away the density of the material, in my opinion. So watch how it kind of slowly goes in. Like there's no real density to it. See, they almost have that almost 90 degrees before it actually falls in. What do you think? I mean, my opinion's fabric, some kind of fabric.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't fall apart like dirt or something. There's some type of structure there. And if it's and now you could also have just clothing of the victims. It doesn't have to be
sure.
burlap. It could just be
Yeah.
clothing from some victim, and they'll identify certain characteristics of that.
So that could be huge.
And it could be something that was partially burned. I think there was some people noted that he did burn things at times, and is this something that he burned certain clothing? It might even be his own clothing that he burned that was soiled.
Sure. Oh, sure.
We just don't know anything at this time. But that, like I said, this is in the wheelhouse of the CSI guys and the lab work, and they're going to be able to use all that. And it'll be interesting to see it when it does come in to discovery for the court system.
Yep. All right, guys, got to the moment that I've been dying to show everybody. So this is the moment. So let me get caught up in chat, and I'm going to play this. So this is the phone call, and I've got the context to everything. It's going to play by itself and just explain itself for the most part. And we'll do a couple watch throughs. Let me just make sure we're caught up here. So many people. Thank you guys so much. Got over 600 people in here. Thank you guys so much. Please, if you can, hit the like button if you haven't. Sorry, getting caught up here. It says clothing, burlap sack, awesome. Yeah, I think it's definitely some kind of fabric. Like I said, when I first looked at it, I thought it was soiled just because that's what we did. But then looking at it. All right, here we go. This is what I've been kind of excited to show.
We're learning that Rex Heuermann may have called a documentary filmmaker 7 years ago in a sick effort at pinning the crime spree on somebody else. Producer Josh Zeman was making a documentary about the Gilgo Beach murders. He says his office received a phone message from someone claiming to know who the killer is.
So these are the guys. They do Killing Season. I've seen a couple episodes. Really great. Obviously, they've covered this case. Done a great job. But yeah, they get this phone call. We're going to listen to it. I pay attention to more of his voice because we're going to do voice analysis first, and then we're going to do what he actually says in it, and it's wild. But notice the way this guy accentuates some of his words. Like when he finishes a word, it's long. I noticed that's kind of how he talks.
Yeah. I had heard that the gentleman that owned Atlantis Marine in Riverhead, he was a suspect, and that's when he killed himself. I worked with the police department, and I had heard that's who the DA's office was questioning and everything else. And, with number one suspect.
It was shady and weird enough that we put it in the series.
Is it Heuermann's voice? This is Heuermann in an interview for a YouTube channel.
I'm an architectural consultant. I'm a troubleshooter. Born and raised on Long Island.
Here's that mysterious phone call again.
I worked with the police department, and I had heard that's who the DA's office was questioning.
Rex Heuermann, I'm an architect, I'm an architectural consultant, I'm a troubleshooter, born and raised on Long Island. Okay. Been working in Manhattan since 1987. Patience. Yeah. Patience, and I don't like to use the word tolerance, but sometimes you have to. Yeah. And it's not just with the city, it's also with the client.
So I'm going to pause it right there. So it doesn't sound 100%. I'm sure he's probably masking his call a little bit, but the way he accentuates some of the words sounds close. I wouldn't say it's like a dead on 100% him, but what do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I'd like to see it, the transcript put out and see what type of cadence he has and see if it's similar. How often does he use I, and things of that sort. And, but of course they're going to be analyzing every aspect of that now that they have a target, and Rex being the target, that they'll go back before the fact from that phone call that was brought in. what type of, because they know a date and time that phone call was made now.
Yep.
Because the documentary was documented the exact time, and they'll go back and even look at Rex's calendar. Where was he at the time that call was made?
Right.
And is it in the same location? Is it near his office or whatever the digital footprint would be from that? They'll check those phone records. Does he have an alibi for that limited time frame of when that call was made? And it could be huge if so, that they're able to link it up from that. It just won't be the analysis of if it's the same speech pattern or because it's so easy to disguise voices sometimes just by changing your cadence. And but there's more to a phone call than just the words spoken.
Right.
There's that digital footprint.
Yep. Okay. So let me know if you think it's him or not in the chat. Don't be shy. And then I'm going to play something. So I'm going to get to chat first, and then I'm going to play something for those that may not think it's him, because there's something interesting that I discovered today, and that's said in this, and then what she says in this interview. And I think, to me, it's 90% it's him. I think he just kind of changed his voice, because obviously he's called in, he's talked to his families. I'm sure he's disguised his voice somewhat. I don't know how, but so let me get to chat, and then I'm going to play this new thing, and we're going to listen to what he actually said, because it's what he says in there and what she was told, and it lines right up. So Gabriel, thank you so much for the $5. You are so awesome. Steve on cue with the light. Thank you so much, buddy. Yeah, this trial will be huge. Yeah, we got so many already. D, thank you so much. Oh, I love the kitty. I love the picture. Thank you so much for the $5.
And you had another one just previous to those. That was Elizabeth Kohler gave 20.
Oh, yeah. She's actually at the end here. But
okay.
Yep. No, thank you, Steve, for looking out. So Cunningham says yes. Bubble says no. Okay. I respect that. It does sound different. I'm going to say it's not 100% match. That's definitely for sure. The tones are different. But one thing you got to remember is you're taking a recording from a recording. So you're getting a second generation from the guys from 2006. Plus you're getting probably, I think that's 2006. So you're probably getting, phones were different. They didn't have, you're getting a different signal. I don't know the best way to describe it. I'm not the best audio technician, but I understand it a little bit, acoustics, background, device you're using. You can get your voice to change just by being in different environments in the equipment you use. But long story short, that was kind of a second generation recording. And then we're versing it, comparing it to, New Age tech where he's mic'd up in that interview from Bonjour. So you got to keep that in mind. So let me get this, and then I'm going to play this next part. This could be shocking. Hands down, you two are the best. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. You are so kind. Yes, I'm going to play this. And Monique, I'm actually going to make a video where I'm going to break down, because I just didn't have enough time today, but I'm going to actually break words down between the two, his full interview. I'm sure I could take a lot from his full interview and break down some sentence structures. I just didn't have enough time today. Cynthia, do people have something like unique voice prints? Oh, yeah. I mean, you can nowadays, oh my gosh. Yeah, you have access to make you can sound like anybody now with just an app. Keep in mind that was back in the day. So now, all right, now we're caught up. I'm really excited to show this. So listen to what she says, what she's talking about. And I even pull up it on the screen. But listen to what she was told in her date.
I said, well, who do you think did it? And obviously he's not going to.
Sorry, I had to back it up a little bit here.
I said, well, who do you think did it? And obviously he's not going to say me. So he was like, oh, he's like, it could be Bissett, the guy, the aquarium owner. And
Okay, so Jim Bissett was an aquarium owner. I don't know a lot of the details behind this, but he was in Long Island. I guess he self-harmed himself. So he's no longer with us. And I guess because of his aquarium and his nursery, he had access to these burlaps. So she's saying that when she went on this date with Rex, that he was basically saying, oh, well, I think it's this guy here, Jim Bassett, from the aquarium owner. Okay, so now let's listen to what the guy says in the phone call from 2006.
I feel like he said that in retrospect. I feel like he said that because the sacks that the bodies were in, the burlap sacks, were traceable to Bissett's nursery farm, like nursery that he owned. And I feel like he said that because he knew Bissett would be a suspect when they found the burlap sacks.
Yeah. I had heard that the gentleman that owned Atlantis Marine in Riverhead, he was a suspect, and that's when
I'm an architect. I'm an architectural.
So there he is. Somebody back 2006 or whatever throwing this guy under the bus. And then here this girl's talking about when she went on the date that he was trying to throw this guy under the bus. Coincidence? Pretty interesting, huh?
Well, plus we have a whole new investigation we've got to go back and look at now. We've got to go back and look and see, is this something from self-harm, or is this something possibly that Bissett was suspecting because he had given these burlap bags.
Yeah. Sorry, Steve. When I saw that, because non-audio and how it can change voices. I'm sorry, Steve. Go ahead.
I was just saying that what if Bissett realized who the real offender was, and that Rex had come and got a bunch of these burlap bags from him.
Ooh.
And so now Rex knows that he's suspect by Jim. Not saying that's what happened, but the fact that law enforcement has to go back in and look at this case, that those bags did come from there.
Right.
And for the fact that Rex would know where the bags come from, and where did Rex obtain those bags? And if those bags did come from this individual who is a co-owner of the aquarium, and those can be linked, then of course they're going to have to go back and look at this death and see if it is any shape, form, or fashion possibly that this individual could be another victim.
Right. Yeah, absolutely wild though. Because when I heard her say that, I'm like, God, I heard the aquarium thing mentioned, and I'm like, oh my God, that was mentioned in this 2000 or this old documentary. And yeah, so like I said, I look for a video, probably come out tomorrow. I'm going to break down, because obviously the interview with the Bonjour guy, he talks a lot. There's a 40-minute interview. So what I'm going to try to do is break down, because obviously the call that they have 2006, it's 20-30 seconds. So but I'm sure I could find some groups of words to match up, because it does seem like he enunciates some words. He kind of pauses on, I don't know what the right word is, but he kind of the word, he'll kind of stop, and so he has these pauses. Basically what I'm trying to say. Gene Darcy, thank you so much for the $10 super sticker. You are so awesome. Love us, Steve and Chris show. Just missing Mrs. Steve. Well, she is here in spirit with the light. So let's see what you guys are thinking here. Yeah, taunting the families, right? Yeah, it is. Yep, the killing season. Right. Yeah, and that's what he did with all of the dates that we know of. Huge red flag. Excellent point, Steve. Perry says, good to see you, Perry. But yeah, I could definitely see him trying to frame, set somebody up for sure. Why not? I mean, it sounds like that was what he was kind of trying to do. I mean, with the victim, just kind of, hey, there's this guy, this nursery, kind of get the word out there.
and we have to look at for the fact that Rex is saying, and Rex has been charged with these offenses. So is this the source of those burlap bags? Because he would know. And law
Right.
enforcement is looking for the source of these bags. And so if he can drive the source to this individual, it creates a barrier from law enforcement looking at him. And so it's, you know, it's just something that just jumps out at you as a natural step for an offender to say that I know where the bags come from. These bags are associated with the Long Island, and they're on these 4 victims, and they came from this aquarium. I'm not saying that's what it is, but
Yeah.
if it is the case, then this death here with this Jim Bissett absolutely has to be looked back into.
For sure, for sure. Angie, I just want to say thank you so much for the $50. I just realized I was focused on your comment, but thank you so much for the generous donation. Thank you so much. You guys are so awesome. Just Joan, I think the tape is more likely his voice. Yeah, it's not a one-on-one match for sure. And like I said, I think we're looking at some different variables like analog, digital, different things. And I'm sure he probably kind of tried to mask his voice or did something, try to change it a little bit. A little bit
At that
deeper.
time, was the burlap bags known to the general public of when that call was made?
Let's see. So no, it could have been 2006 because they didn't find the bodies in 2000. So it must be 2016. I have 2006 in my head. So I apologize. I keep saying 2006. I think that's 2016 is when that came in. Yes, that would have been public. I don't know when the burlap actually was announced.
Yeah,
It's a good question.
That'd be something I absolutely would have to find out. That if burlap bags weren't mentioned at the time, were unknown of when this call was made and this documentary was made, and that was something that only law enforcement knew, then of course there's no ifs, ands, or buts. If he knew something that no one else knew.
Right. Yeah. Sorry, Hannah. Yeah, but Nightbot's a little. I might have to have my mod tone that down just a little bit. Yeah. And some people don't think the voice match pattern matches. Yeah, I respect that. Like I said, I don't think it sounds like him one-on-one, but I think it is him. I just think he's just masking it. All right, let's move on. Did you want to? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. This article here is dated December 15th, 2011, which is 2 days after some of the victims were found.
Yeah, 5 days. Yeah.
So this is early on. And because these victims, and who would have known about those burlap bags at that time?
Now, they found the first set in 2010. Do keep that in mind.
Okay.
This is when they found the second set. Yeah.
But and that's what I would. That's my big question is I know nothing about the case, and I don't.
Yeah, that's fine.
Would law enforcement and did law enforcement release that information about the burlap bags?
I would think they did have some press conference. I'd have to look at the date, but you make a great point. That's something I have to look up for sure. And I'm sure somebody in chat probably named it because I know there's a lot of people in chat that know it well better, this case much more than I do. And I'm not afraid to admit it. Oh my gosh, I don't want to butcher this. Asku. I'm sorry. I'm going to say. I want to say Elise because that's like starts out. I'm just going to say goal. I'm sorry. I'm going to figure out that name though. But thank you so much for becoming a member because I'm going to butcher it and I'm going to feel absolutely terrible. Thank you so much for becoming a member and supporting the channel. You are so awesome. And I will look that up and properly pronounce it next time. Okay, so caught up in chat here, and we'll go for a little bit more. I've got a little bit more stuff, and like I said, I'm going to do a video for tomorrow where I'm going to break down this whole conversation that we just played. I'll play it one more time while I'm setting up my thing real quick. So I'll just play the last 2 minutes just for you guys to hear it one more time.
This is Heuermann in an interview for a YouTube channel.
I'm an architectural consultant. I'm a troubleshooter. Born and raised on Long Island.
Here's that mysterious phone call again.
I work with the police department, and I had heard that that's who the DA's office was questioning.
Rex Heuermann. I'm an architect. I'm an architectural consultant. I'm a troubleshooter. Born and raised on Long Island. Okay. Been working in Manhattan since 1987. Patience. Yeah. Patience, and I don't like to use the word tolerance, but sometimes you have to.
Yeah.
And it's not just with the city, it's also with the client.
I said, well, who do you think did it?
So like I said, I'm going to see if maybe I can try to, I'm sure there's some programs where I could take his recording from the Bonjour and make it seem like it was kind of a second generation. And maybe vice versa with the other phone call. I mean, I really don't want to tweak them that much, but the main thing is I'm going to try to find the same words said in a sentence. I'm sure there's got to be a couple because, like I said, I just didn't have enough time before the show. Because that's a big interview he does on Bonjour, and I'm sure I could find some. But just the fact that they're talking about the same thing, it's just interesting. Very interesting. Got some more people. It's him. Some people say no. So weird what's taking so long here. Okay, so we're getting down to the nitty gritty here. So I wanted to talk about the four girls here, kind of finish up the show. So we're going to kind of focus on the Gilgo four for a minute and then just everything as a whole and get your kind of final thoughts here. So here are the Gilgo four. From left to right is the victim order. Now, Maureen Barnes is the one that right now she is connected, but right now there's no charges against Rex, which is odd because she's actually one of the victims. There's 3 out of 4 victims that actually have female hair on the victims, and she's actually one of them. So I'm really surprised that she's out of the 4, if there's one missing, it's kind of surprising. I mean, I think they should all be. But they said they are going to have a grand jury eventually, and all 4 are going to be in there. So here are so I guess in New York and some other states, you know how we have PC affidavits here? In New York and other states, I guess they call them bail documents. I've never heard. Yeah, I was wondering. Yeah, that's so crazy. So anyway, in this bail document, which is like the search warrants. Probable cause, I think, would be the better one. So this is Miss Bernard's. This just kind of talks about a little bit of what they found on her. So she had been restrained by 3 leather belts, one of which was utilized to tie her feet, ankles, and legs together. During the examination of belts, a female human hair was recovered on the buckle of one of the belts. And then, of course, it talks about how they would do DNA on it. And I think this is the one. I think maybe this is wise. This is how I said there's 3 out of the 4 girls that have hair. This is the one hair that they haven't fully identified, I think, as the wife's hair. They haven't excluded the wife, but they haven't been able to. Now, for some reason, they didn't, in the bail doc, they didn't talk about Melissa. I mean, they did, but they didn't mention what they found with her. Then we have Megan. She had been bound by clear and white duct tape. During the course of the examination, 2 female hairs were recovered, one from the outside head area and one from the tape of the head area. Both hairs were recovered in the vicinity of her head. These 2, I think, were for sure ended up being the defendant's wife's hair. Then we have Amber Costello. It appeared that she was bound by 3 pieces of clear white duct tape. During the course of the examination, they found female hair, which was recovered on a piece of tape and inside the burlap wrapping near her head as well. And then I'm assuming these are the 2 that the tape was connected to the wife. And then, so some connections to the four. I'm sorry, I got to take a sip here, Steve. I'm sorry. So all four victims were found without clothing or possessions. All four victims were bound with some kind of tape or belt. One of the belts was actually, we believe, came from Heuermann with the WH, which was his grandfather's initials, William Heuermann. Now, this is what's interesting in this document, because you usually hear that all the Gilgo 4 were wrapped in burlap. But in this belt document, it says 3 out of the 4 victims were wrapped in burlap. So I don't know. And they literally go out of the way to say 3 out of the 4. So, because I know sometimes there can be typos. So I don't know. Maybe somebody knows in the chat why it says that. Because I was always under the impression all 4 were in burlap. But it clearly says in the Bell document, I should have took a screenshot, that 3 out of the 4 were in burlap. And then 3 out of the 4 were found with female hair. So here's where the 4 victims were found, which is kind of interesting. So you got 1, 2, and 3, which are really close together. So you got about 300 feet apart, 200 feet apart, and then you've got 800 feet apart. And then if you're wondering which number corresponds to who, we got Maureen Barnes, victim number 1, Melissa, number 2, Megan Waterman, number 3, and Amber Costello, number 4. And so she's kind of spread out a little bit a ways, but most of the victims, as far as from the road or sidewalk or from the pavement, is either from 22 feet to 33 feet from the pavement. So this is where I kind of want, where we were talking at the beginning, if you have this boat, so here's where, most of the bodies were found, or a good portion of them were found. So if you had a boat, you would think, why not go to one of these desolate islands? I mean, I'm sure some of these islands got some kind of, I don't know, population, but, something on them. But I'm sure a lot of these are, I'm sure somebody in chat, I know I got a lot of viewers that live out there. I'm sure a lot of these are desolate. So what's your thoughts, Steve? Do you think he was purposely putting these bodies close to the road to be found?
I think he was on the road and transported by vehicles. I don't see going through all the steps of using a boat. The risk factor of that is so great. I think that you're not talking about an individual here that you can take, because every minute, and there's a clock that we have, a biological clock, or at least that's what they taught us, that every minute that you spend with a victim is one more minute that you can be discovered by law enforcement or be linked to a victim. And so once you're in that phase of that someone is packaged and you're about to dump them, it's not a long process. And generally you try to separate yourself so that you're away from that victim. And I don't see all the hard work, because you can watch him, he's a large individual person.
Right.
And by the time you add another, he's probably close to 300 pounds or so.
Yep.
And by the time you add another person, him being able to walk through that marshland from the waterway carrying and, approaching 400 pounds and navigating that marshland is not something that I think, for people that have duck hunted, some of the areas that these ducks get into, and when you leave and you walk in that marshland, it's not something that you want to negotiate. You'll sink up to your hip in spots.
And because it's marsh. So you're good. Yeah, you've got that weight of yourself plus the victim. Oh gosh.
And so I wouldn't even consider that. I may be absolutely proven wrong, but I think it's going to be more vehicle versus, the making it more complex than what human nature is something that people love to look at, but I wouldn't consider it as most likely.
Okay, so people are saying I've always said 3. Okay, maybe I misheard that. Maybe was always under the impression, like I said, I am definitely newer to this case. I've known about it, but definitely learning every day that I research this case. But I guess I always thought that at least the Gilgo victims were all in Burlap. So, oh, Jennifer, yeah, maybe if we could tone down Nightbot's the caps, maybe like 1 or 2 notch, or just 1 notch if you could, Jennifer. Is it possible? Or we could talk about it after the show if it is possible. Hope you're doing well, Jennifer. Let's see, getting caught up here. You're right, Steve. Yeah. So I'm assuming talking about just the weight being in the marsh, and you've got he's close to 280, I think, is it, because he's 6'4", he's a big guy. So 280, 300 pounds. Then you've got a victim. Now, of course, his victims are, but it's dead weight still. So 100, 120 pounds, 150 pounds of dead weight going through marsh. So you're sinking in. Yeah, that's got to be rough. And I can play part of that video where they show. So let me just turn down the volume just to get a look at the marsh again. Oops. So, here it is. Just kind of get a look at the marsh. So that's that what he's pointing at is where the road is at. So where that tree line is, basically is where the bodies were found.
Well, I mean, you could probably go to Google Earth and take a measurement and see how far he would have had to track and carry a individual across that marsh. And I just don't see it happening. I think it was by vehicle.
Do you think by vehicle? I agree. I agree, because there's been no mention of a boat yet. And I would think they would be on that, because that's I would think that'd be a big part of the case, just in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, and then like I said, you've just got all these other areas that, because here you've got this strip of land is obviously populated. This is where cars go through. There's, a major road, major highway, parkway, wherever you want to call it. Whereas if you had access to a boat that you're either taken from either, Long Island, or I don't know where else you would take it, maybe either from some of these spots here, why you wouldn't just, if you're going to do that, why not put it in one of these spots, that,
or just drop them in the water and let nature and water and all the predators within the water
do their thing.
What happens in nature. It makes no sense.
Right. So it's kind of like either he had a boat and he wants this to be like, he wants to be caught, or not caught, but he wants, he wants the credit. And then there's just one more thing. So just to get your thoughts on this. So Gilgo 4, most of them were put in Burlap. Now these other victims, a lot of them were cut up, and some of them were disposed in multiple areas. Now the Gilgo 4, obviously, those victims, even though they were found first, they're actually kind of the more latest victims out of the victims found around here. These earlier victims, I have to be careful. Serial offenders do change their MO, like Ted Bundy. He first went from going inside a house to not lowering him to the car, and then back to going into breaking and entering. You got James Angelo, who after, I don't know if it was the town hall meeting where he just used to go after single women, but then after the town hall meeting, then he literally changed his MO and started breaking into where there was a couple. So he could tie up the boyfriend, we'll tie them both up, and then, yeah, just absolutely terrible. So do you think it's possible that he could have, if he's related to these, he changed his MO? And
well, I mean, everyone learns, just like when you take on a new job. When you first get there, you're clumsy and there's a learning curve to it.
Sure.
Well, these offenders have the same learning curve, that they get better at it. And plus they're driven us looking at it and trying to rationalize what their fantasies and their thought process and their MO of what they're trying to do with this victim, we just can't make sense of it. But they'll learn and they get better at their abilities and more skillful, and they may change and they may increase certain aspects of their crime to satisfy whatever their drive is. That from one victim to the next, it's going to take more to excite them to reach that plateau of whatever they're seeking. And so there's so much to these individuals that the behavioral science looks at, that it's more to it than just changing the MO. But why would they change the MO? And it's because they're learning, they're getting better at it. And will we ever know the true number of victims of this one? Who knows? We may never.
Yeah, unless he comes forward.
Well, even if he comes forward, even like with Ted Bundy came forward many times.
Yeah.
And trying to save his life.
Right.
Saying,
yeah.
This is what I'll do in exchange for this. This is what I'll do. I'll give you more victims. And will he play that game also if he does step up to the plate? Absolutely possible.
Right. Does New York have the DP, the penalty? Sorry, I have to be careful what I say. Let me know in chat. I know there's a lot of New Yorkers out there. Any thoughts on AI voice in the future? Ooh. I'm sure there's going to be.
It will be almost like what we witnessed early days of CSI, of when we went from 35 millimeter film into the digital age of photography, and the digital cameras came out. That they will have to do the same thing and be able to guarantee that when AI comes into this voice analysis and working on whatever voices are out there, that there's a way that there's nothing created or brought in by the AI that could be used to create false evidence. And that's the same thing with digital, because Photoshop, there's nothing I can't do with Photoshop. But now they have programs out there that if you go in there, of course, it will leave watermarks or whatever the proper term for leaving certain digital prints that you were in there doing something to that photograph. And they will have to do the same thing with artificial intelligence, and that's going to be something that's going to be so huge in the future of all these algorithms, and as technology advances, that we have to safeguard evidence, and they'll do that.
Yeah. Abigail Crochet. Yeah. Abigail Crochet. Been watching the channel all day. Really impressed with the channel. Thank you so much. I'm trying to find where you became a member. I'm sorry, we've got so many in chat. So thank you so much for becoming a member. And you gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much. That's so awesome. I usually upload stuff for the memberships at the beginning of the week. So probably tomorrow I'll have something for my members. So thank you so much. That is so awesome. Just get caught up in chat, and then we're going to get just a couple, basically one more thing. We'll finish up here. I just saw somebody say something.
They said they outlawed it in 2004, that they took it off the table.
Okay. Interesting. Some saying they don't think the vote could be involved.
Well, I would be shocked.
Yeah, some people, there was one, and I can't find it now, says I live out there and I don't believe a vote was involved. Yeah, interesting. Okay. My theory, the ladies whom he couldn't murder, let's say that word. You're okay. That's my fault. You don't know. They don't like that M word. You're fine though. Who couldn't homicide were the social, economical, powerful ones. He targeted disadvantaged ladies, dumped wherever, didn't care. Then he had a trial. Then he had a trial on advantage ones, failed, stopped, and cried at home. Yeah, probably. Yeah, I'm assuming he's, I get what you're saying. Yeah, he seems like that kind of person. He's a piece of crap because he did surround himself with the girl next door type at his office, and he made a lot of them feel uncomfortable. He wasn't very genuine. But thank you so much. I have never seen TRY 220.
I don't know what.
I don't know what
that is.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to find out the proper pronunciation, and then I'll say your next time I see you in chat, so I don't butcher it because I don't want to do that. But thank you so much. I don't know what that even is. I think that's around like 10, 20. I think that's $20. I think orange is like $10 or $20. So thank you so much. Debbie Oylander, thank you so much for becoming a member. Yeah, I think I'm going to do a show about that maybe next time because I don't want to get because we're getting close to the end of the show. But yeah, it's definitely want to bring that up, especially with the man and woman calling the attorney. Could this be separate serial offenders or groups of people? And yeah, so I do want to bring that up in a different show. But yeah, interesting. Once the body is found, so he can get the shock reaction. Totally see that. Totally agree. Okay, I think we are caught up in chat here. I just wanted to share one more thing. Final thoughts, Steve, just while I'm going through chat here. Anything that you...
Oh, no, I appreciate you having me. And hopefully I haven't clouded up the issue too much. And appreciate it. And there's a lot to look at for the fact that these grounds of where he was dumping these victims ended in 2010, 2011. Once the victims started being discovered, he was no longer have the ability. And if he continued on, and there's no reason to believe that he would have not continued, that there are other grounds and other victims out there that he would have had to find a new dumping ground. And where is that? And of course, law enforcement, now that we have a target and he's identified, they're going to be looking, where did he hunt? What was his mode of transportation? What vehicles did he own? Where did he travel? And so hopefully they'll be able to find other victims and linking to, there may be other named serial offenders out there that have dump sites. They just haven't made the link to him. Hopefully they will be able to. Yeah.
Treading, dredging, or trudging. Yeah. I think it was trudging. Yeah. But yeah. The duck hunters don't use boats. The duck hunters there don't use boats. So that's a question. Yeah, I mean, they said that some people do, but I'm not from. I don't know that area. I've never been that far east, so I'm not familiar with that.
I mean, you always have that. No matter where you hunt, I don't care if you even go to Arkansas. You have some people that may hunt from different types of duck boats, or they may walk in. And so you'll have that in all different areas.
Sure. Yeah, it looks like they're doing that. Yeah, I'm sure they're still going back through all that. Especially he's had so many burner phones. Every victim, at least for the Gilgo 4, he got a new burner phone. He was literally just a little over a month ago, he was at T-Mobile buying minutes in cash for a burner phone. So yeah, God. And so they have to look because that's each phone is going to be a new number. So a new ping, that's not just looking up one phone number. So yeah, I'm sure that's going to take a lot of work. I love turkey. Thank you so much. Yeah, one of my favorite basketball players who played for the Utah Jazz. I mean, this is decades ago, but Mehmet Okur, he was from Turkey. I loved him. He's so funny and such a good player. So I just want to thank you so much to all the new members, to everybody just taking the time out of the day to watch this show. You guys are so awesome. But yeah, we're going to have just kind of waiting the heat out right now. Steve's going to be moving, and well, I guess you could be moving after, but yeah, we've got plans for another trip in August to go back out on the road. I may go out sooner than that, maybe for Dylan Rounds and or Aiden Clune, and maybe I just got to get some things done on my car. So, but yeah, super stoked. And let me just before I miss anything here. And yeah, so just update. I did get access to my email, so I'm going to try to get caught up tonight or first thing tomorrow, because I got locked out of my email again. So thank you guys so much, Steve. Oh, and one more time, please, before you go, please, if you're new and you want to subscribe to Steve's channel, the link is pinned at the top of the chat. If you're not subscribed to Steve's channel, please go over there and subscribe. He goes live. What's your hours you go live, Steve? You want to go ahead and explain?
Pretty well. We try to have presentations on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays, and then I have what is morning watch on Wednesdays and or Thursday mornings at 12:05, and on Monday mornings at 12:05 a.m. So trying to get different people in my community, make sure that they can at least catch some lives.
Awesome. Well, you do amazing work, and when maybe Brian Koberger case comes up, we're going to probably maybe have time to do some experiments like we did with the Murdoch trial, and those were big.
Absolutely.
We decided to do that again too. So thank you so much. Thank you to all my mods. You guys are amazing. And we will be back live Wednesday. Steve will be live early tonight or tomorrow for sure.
I don't even know what I've been so busy. We're still doing so much stuff. But
tomorrow probably.
Yeah, probably it'll be tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I didn't get a pet outro set up here. Steve, I'll put you backstage real quick, buddy.
Absolutely.
Get a pet outro here going. And yeah, so I will have something for my members here probably tomorrow. Give me some time. So good night, everybody. Love you guys. I'm going to play the outro now, and we'll see you guys Wednesday.